This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joire.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Wednesday, January 16th, 2019, and my guest is no other than David Imel of Android Authority. Hi, David. How are you?
Hello. I'm great. I am done with CES and I'm happy. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, right. So I hate to bring that up because, you're done with CES, but we're actually going to do a show that kind of recaps a little bit of CES.
All right.
I don't want to spend the whole show on that, though. There's some cool phones rumored that I kind of want to touch on. And I know that you couldn't make the show that we did as a group last week in Vegas. So I figured, hey, let's get David on this week and we can kind of get his thoughts on all the CS stuff. So give me a kind of one sentence, kind of like, what's your thoughts on CS this year?
So there was no phones there. There was like 2 or 3 phones that were announced at CES. So it's like, I think every year we've gotten to the point where it's like less and less of a phone show and everyone's kind of shifting to MWC. And it makes sense because MWC is in less than a month.
Right. But I mean, beyond phones, like I'm not necessarily looking for phone stuff. And there's some stuff to talk about. There's a few phones like the CAT S61 that you did a hands-on. There's the Honor U20, which is not new, but we finally all got to see in person, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm thinking like as a global thing, regardless of whether it's mobile or not, like what is your thing about CS? What was your feeling about it?
What's interesting is like every year there seems to be a very clear theme at CES, right? And this year I didn't really see one, which was strange. I read an interesting metric that said that there were 20% less Chinese companies this year than usual. And that makes me think that there's going to be like a little bit less innovation, a little bit less stuff that makes us literally say like, wow, And I felt that really strongly. It just kind of felt like there were a lot of companies that were, playing their safe game. There was some rollable OLED stuff, which was cool. I think we saw a lot of that. But overall, I think it felt less innovative than every other CES that I've attended. So,
yeah, I kind of feel that. I feel it was a bit of a sleeper CS in the sense of like sleepy CS.
Yeah.
Like a little slow and a little, I don't know. I wasn't too keen on it this year.
Yeah, me neither.
It just didn't strike a big, exciting little string in me.
Yeah.
But that being said, there was some stuff. And for me, the general vibe was it was a bit slow. But and there really wasn't that much innovation per se, but more like iteration this year. I felt like a lot of it was like, this is normal evolution, and it doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Sure.
I do find it funny that a lot of publications chose the Impossible Burger to version 2.0.
I think that shows how there was really not that much exciting stuff this year.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you nailed it. Yeah, I mean that to me kind of like summarizes CS really well this year. It's like we were kind of clutching at straws to find something, and then this came along and we're like, burgers, awesome.
Yeah.
I guess maybe we're all hungry from eating the same crappy food all week.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Probably.
It's not crappy. I guess we get fed for free by a lot of places. We shouldn't be complaining. We're such ungrateful bastards.
I know, right? But.
So. But yeah, I feel like you're right. I feel it was a bit of a sleepy, not sleeper, but sleepy CS. I feel like we could have gotten more. But that being said, what are the things that were innovative, well, maybe not innovative, but iterative, I meant, that really kind of struck a chord with you?
Well, I think a lot of people were talking about that LG rollable OLED, and like last year we saw it in concept. And this year we actually saw like the final retail product version, which was pretty cool. So it was nice seeing that actually come to fruition and like realize that like there are a lot of concepts at CES that actually do get made into products. It's not just all random concepts that aren't going to actually turn out to be something. We saw a lot of interesting laptops actually. This seemed like it felt kind of like Computex. There were so many laptops.
And that actually got me pretty happy, to be honest.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I always like seeing what ASUS is doing with their stuff. Interestingly, Razer didn't really bring their normal CES A game. In my opinion, they usually do some crazy concept, which is really cool. Like last year, they had you could put the Razer phone into like a laptop thing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That was amazing, and I was really hoping they would. And every year they do something really cool. The year before they had the 3-screen laptop, but this year it was just kind of like an extension of their product stack. And technically, the stuff that they showed off was prototype, but all of it I think is actually going to come to market, is what they said. Whereas like usually their stuff does not come to market. So that was weird. But yeah.
Yeah, the thing that I liked about the Razer booth was the Nanoleaf lamps,
integration.
lights, whatever, integration nice. With the chroma stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not into the whole like have your entire room beat to the rhythm of your lighting for your game setup. It's not my thing, right. But I get it. Some people are really into it, and I respect that. I'm just saying like that got me a little more excited. I was like, oh, of course you do that integration with Phew and Nanoleaf and stuff. But it wasn't exactly
also
as
Alexa.
Exciting. Right. Well, of course, but it wasn't so exciting to me as like, the Razer phone and the laptop dock thing.
Right.
I thought that was really cool because it's also kind of the perfect size for a trackpad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the thing about Razer, and I want to say as an aside, I did finally get a Razer 2 review unit at the end of the year, and I took it to CES as one of my main phones, and I quickly learned that the camera is quite a mess, like more so than, say, a phone like the Republic of Gamer
the RG
phone. Yeah. RG phone. The RG phone, I was kind of going into it expecting the camera to be very meh based on previous Asus phones, but it's not awesome, but it holds its own. It's like, kind of low end flagship worthy camera on the ROG phone. But I feel that the Razer phone's camera is just like, it's worse than the Moto G6 at this point. And the Moto G6 is actually half decent, for the price. So I'm just like, but it turns out, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because we're talking about Razer, but it turns out that there is, of course, XDA Forum, always rescues us of all the evils of the world. When it comes to fixing camera apps, there is a pixel port of the camera app.
As per usual. Yep.
As per usual. And I installed it and magic happened after that. I'm not saying it's good. I mean, it's much better, basically. It's like at the point now where I can say, okay, it's flagship worthy, kind of low end flagship worthy. It can run with the ROG phone now, And so if you have a Razer 2 phone, please, please, please do yourself a favor. Go find those APKs.
The GCam port, yeah.
And because I will post not on Instagram, but I'll post on Twitter and Facebook a comparison of 3 photos. Basically, one taken with the Razer cam in low light, one taken with the exact same photo taken with the Pixel cam in low light, and then taken with the Pixel cam in night sight. And on the same hardware, right? The Razer 2 hardware. And you'll see it's night and day. Like, it's clearly a software issue. The biggest complaints I have is basically that the camera has poor detail in daylight and completely falls apart in low light. Yeah. And the Pixel camera certainly fixed that a lot. Like, it does improve it in both areas significantly. So I'm not quite sure how Razer can still ship that camera app. Like, seriously,
I know.
How can you not fix that? It's just weird to me.
I know when they released the Razer Phone 1, when they released it, they basically had not changed anything from the stock Sony sensor. They didn't really do any tweaking. And so it was like kind of an over time type thing. Right. And the Razer Phone 1 got a lot better over time, but I think it's still, in comparison to like what most other companies have done over the last few years, like, they need a lot of work. You can still tell that they're new to the smartphone game, right? Like the Razer Phone 2 was obviously quite an evolution in terms of like hardware and features, but it takes a long time for a company to get good at imaging.
Go on.
Well, Razer is not a camera company, right? Like,
yeah, but it's unacceptable. You make a flagship phone today that costs that much money. You cannot get away with not having a good camera. I don't care what the purpose of the phone is. Like,
right? Yeah, totally. I'm not making that statement.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, it's interesting that they're not seeing that somehow.
Yeah. They should have brought in like specific camera engineers for this type of thing, and maybe they did. But I think they need to work on it for sure. So
yeah. So, I mean, aside from that, I know we're doing a tangent on the Razer Phone too, and that's fine because that's what this podcast is all about. I didn't really discuss my experience with the Razer too much until now because I just got a review in it. I mean, it came up in the podcast many times, but I have to say that, look, I like it as a phone overall. Like, I feel like it is a nice phone, but it doesn't like strike a chord with me. It's like, first of all, I can't deal with the aspect ratio and the size of the screen. Versus the size of the shape of the device. It's real big. It's real big. It's real. I mean, I actually like the boxy design, but I feel like it's the fact that it has so much bezel, especially because of the front-firing speakers. And frankly, they sound good, but I had never really experienced the Razer speakers before on the phone or Phone 2, and everybody had gone on and on about how it's the best audio on. I'm sorry, I don't agree. I don't think it's that great.
It's just loud.
It's loud. But it actually kills the bass very quickly when you raise the volume to preserve the speakers in a dynamic way, which is totally what modern amplifiers do. But to me, it just doesn't sound that great. I mean, it's definitely one of the better sounding ones on the market. But frankly, the Mate 20 Pro sounds just as good in my opinion.
Yeah.
The Poco phone surprisingly sounds great as well for its money. I can think of a few other phones that I have floating around that I could put. Like, honestly, I think the ROG phone, Republic of Gamers, did a really good job on the audio on that phone. It's surprisingly good. And it doesn't get as loud as the Razer, but I feel like it keeps a full spectrum at a higher volume level better. And I think that's the problem. People look purely at loudness, but if everything's dynamically compressed to the point where it's just like one steady stream of loudness, the audio suffers from it, even if it's still clear. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Maybe I'm hearing things differently because I'm a bit of an audiophile and a snob, but like, look, all I'm saying is, yes, it's got good audio from the speakers, but the biggest quirk is it doesn't have a headphone jack. And for a gaming phone, that's a major omission.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, are you going to be blasting the speakers on a bus on the way home? While, playing like your favorite video game on a phone? No, you're going to have headphones on.
The accessory, like there was supposed to be a lot more gaming accessories for it, and we still haven't seen anything.
For sure. Kind of like the Red phone and its camera accessories.
Exactly. Yeah, so that was kind of a letdown. I think it could have been amazing with a lot of accessories.
Yeah, but at the same time, I know a lot of people use wireless headphones. There's some good wireless gaming headphones today that, maybe... Does Razer make a wireless set that has chroma and glows in sync with your phone yet?
Yes. Well, it's for...
And they make a wired one. I know the USB-C one, but...
They make Bluetooth ones, so I think it could work with your phone.
There you go. But then you have to worry about latency and video games that really matters, blah, 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 blah. So that's why I'm just surprised. And I know, look, I want to say that the Razer 2 headphone dongle that comes in the box is the best sounding one I've ever used. So it's really great. And so, at least they did that right. But look, I love the design of the phone. I like the boxiness. I like the glass back. I like the chroma logo. I like a lot of things about it. But what I don't like is the aspect ratio and size of the screen. Mostly the fact that it has so much bezel and makes the phone so big and bulky. It is definitely unique. And I think in that sense, it totally hits the spot. I don't like the fingerprint reader on the side. It's also a power button. It's awkward. I have to admit, I haven't used it as a daily driver, and I didn't do the review for it. I just did the hands-on, but I would like to get some more time with it at some point. And the other thing too is that I feel like the screen, everybody went on about the screen, and it's a beautiful screen, but it doesn't stand out to me. It's like, yes, I see the 120 hertz, and that's definitely a huge deal. But honestly, it doesn't feel that much different than the 90 hertz on the ROG phone to me. And the ROG is an OLED and just looks so much better.
Interesting.
And I don't feel the Razer phone gets bright enough, even though I know they've made it much brighter in the second gen.
Yeah.
I used it outdoors in the sun in Vegas, and it was just like hard to read. And all of this combined, it's like, honestly, at that price, I'm not saying I would buy a ROG phone. That's not where I'm going with this, right? I want to make sure that I'm only comparing to the ROG phone because it's the other big gamer phone out there.
The Razer is 700, right?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, why not buy a Pixel 3 XL, or why not buy like a OnePlus 6T or a Poco phone if you want a gaming phone? Because honestly, do you need a gaming phone to play games?
No. You don't. Gaming phones are more about aesthetics.
Say this because, look, Razer, I like them a lot. They make some really great laptops. I like that their design is so intricate and they make an effort there. That's what you pay for. I get that. But I'm just saying, like, for a phone, it's much harder to justify. Like, you can, on a laptop, you can say, we're using separate cooling for the CPU and GPU, using the latest NVIDIA, whatever, right? And we're making it thin and light, and as we know, it's the Razer laptops are favorites of creators because they're great for video editing and stuff. So there's lots of other perks in buying a Razer laptop, but I don't see quite the number of perks here in buying a Razer phone. Yeah,
I think gaming phones in general are just not. They don't add much to the experience, So like I mean, the 120 does, but other than that,
what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that I wish that at the core, this was a really good flagship phone to start with. And then that we'd have added the kind of gaming component with a 120 hertz screen, or even just a 90 hertz OLED, and with, the good front firing speakers, and with that boxy shape and the Chroma logo in the back. And then charged a premium for that, but that the core of it was still a good daily driver flagship.
Yeah.
And I feel that as a daily driver flagship, this thing, doesn't even meet up to my level expectations compared to, say, a Pocophone F1, which is a $300 phone, I might remind you.
Right. Definitely.
So that's kind of where it's tough for me about it. But hey, I don't want you, you not being David, but you, the audience, to think that I'm hating here. I'm not. I really want to like the Razer phone too. I just feel like it's hard to, especially like if the camera at least hit the spot, I'd be like, okay, fine. I can deal with the lack of headphone jack, and I can deal with the weird aspect ratio and the large bezels, because it is a delightful IPS panel for sure. But then I have this camera issue, and I'm just like, I know maybe for some people it doesn't matter. I hear so many people like, what's interesting? I've heard people tell me that they, this came up in CES, my CES Instagram feed, where I posted photos of almost all cool laptops. And I want to talk about laptops because you said it was a laptop show. So yeah. Talk about that. But like I posted phones, and I mentioned, for example, the XPS 13 had the camera in the right place now on top, right?
Yep.
The new XPS 13. And people are like, nobody uses their camera on their laptop. Who cares? And I'm like, seriously, who are you? Like, I use the camera on my laptop at least several times a week because I'm on the go a lot, and I do a lot of Skype calls for clients, for podcasts, for whatever. And I need a camera. It doesn't have to be great. It's just mostly for communication, not for like recording like my greatest epic YouTube video. But like,
what's interesting is I have pretty much completely replaced my laptop with my phone for conference
a lot
calls.
of that stuff. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But then you need a good front camera on the phone. And to me, so like going back to the Razer 2, it's like I feel like you need a good rear camera on your phone, no matter if you're a gamer or not.
I mean, for like conference calls and stuff, like people don't really care. So as long as it works, I'm never like that. I don't really care that much what the quality of the other person's smartphone camera is during a conference call.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that in the same way as I think it's kind of inconceivable for me to get a laptop without a camera, it's also inconceivable for me to get a flagship phone without a good rear camera.
Right.
And I think some people, I guess what I'm trying to say is that in the same way as some people are telling me I don't really care about the webcam on my laptop, there are actually a lot of people who are going to say I don't really care about the rear camera on my flagship phone. And for those people, the Razer 2 is the phone.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if you're a gamer and you don't care about taking photos at all with your phone, seriously, get it. And you'll be saved by the Pixel app. So install that.
True.
Anyway, so let's go to laptops. So what were the laptops that stood out for you?
So the ROG Mothership, I think, was the one that stood out to pretty much everyone. That one was amazing. I think The Verge called it the Surface Pro of gaming laptops.
That's what I said too. I was like, actually, I think I read it on the podcast before. I'm going to read it again because I think it's like I had a little key of genius there when I typed this. I called it, hang on, I'm bringing it up. I called it, one day a Surface and gaming laptop got frisky, and out came the Asus ROG Mothership 2-in-1.
Yeah.
Mobile gaming workstation thingy. I didn't know what to call it. I called it a thingy.
I wish it was a little bit thinner, but I freaking love the concept.
It's so heavy though, like
it's
10 pounds.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
It
so felt
cool,
like 20
though.
pounds to me, but
yeah. It's so cool though. I love that you can like literally take the keyboard off and use it separately and then just put the monitor wherever you want. It's upgradable.
it just feels like a portable workstation to me.
Oh yeah, totally.
And it has the specs to match, which is really solid.
I would love if it had a handle on the top so you could carry it like a briefcase.
Oh my God.
Like my
MacBook
G4 the clamshell that I had way back in the day had a built-in handle, and I freaking loved that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was the iBook G3 actually, because I don't know if the G4 Mac. Well, first of all, they was never called MacBook. It was PowerBooks,
right?
I think. But,
yeah.
But I think the iBook G3 definitely had
Maybe it was the
translucent
G3
one, right?
Yeah, it was the translucent one.
Yeah, that never came with the G4. That was G3. You're right. I mean, there was something to be said. And remember in the 80s, those suitcase computers that had a handle?
Yeah.
Like they literally looked like a small like between a briefcase and like a suitcase inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a CRT and everything. Like the Key Pro, and there was Osborne was the one that kind of is well known for the Osborne effect, where they announced the next computer right after launching the first one, and nobody bought the first one to try to wait for the second one, and then they went out of business, not being able to make the second one. It's actually funny, yeah. But look, I think for me, definitely the motherboard. Mothership from Republic of Gamers, ROG.
A lot of people were making a lot of noise about the Alienware M51.
I didn't see it.
It looked good. You know what was interesting to me is like a lot of people were talking about it a lot and saying it looks way better than previous Alienware laptops. I don't think it looks significantly better. I think it looks good, but it wasn't like incredible. But the nice thing is that like pretty much everything in that laptop is upgradable. So it's just a desktop that you can carry around, which is cool.
Does it even have a battery?
Yeah, but it uses two. I think just like I know the mothership uses two chargers. You have to use two chargers to power it, which is crazy. Yes, with two bricks. And I think the other one might too. I actually don't know. But yeah, it's a big battery and it's got a lot of things. It's got Tobii eye tracking. It's pretty much just completely spec'd out, like the best of the best of any laptop components that you could put
until
in there.
next month.
Until next month, yeah. Yeah.
When NVIDIA launches their new whatever GPU.
The 2080 in laptops, yeah. It has a 2080, I think. Some of the laptops there had 2080s.
Oh yeah, some of them have 2080s. Like I think the mothership had a full-on 2080.
Yeah.
Like not the reduced one. So I don't know what that means.
Well, after, when was it? Oh yeah, not the, right. Because NVIDIA started putting regular chips in their laptops now, but they also have the low power versions. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah. And then there was the new XPS 13, like we talked about.
Yeah. So, question for you: there's kind of several candidates here that I want to throw at you and kind of see which ones take. So, XPS 13 versus Lenovo Yoga S940 versus Asus ZenBook S versus Huawei MateBook 13.
Let me see. The S940 I'm looking right now. I've never been a huge fan of Lenovo's laptops.
Okay.
This one does look pretty good though.
It's super. The things about it is cool is it's super thin.
Yeah.
It does have a very small bezel, and it has that reverse notch thing that the Asus ZenBook S has, where, it's got the little bump on the top of the display to put the camera, but it also serves as a way to open the laptop when it's closed easier. I think it's such a great design idea.
It's so smart. Yeah.
I call it the Audi, the innie versus the Audi. Yeah. So the Audi notch thing, it has super thin bezels and up to 4K display offers.
That
up
is
to 4K,
nice.
and it's super thin. Like it's so insanely thin.
The thing I hate about
thin as the Acer, but
yeah. The thing I just don't really like about Lenovo laptops is that they always stuff in so much bloatware. It's like unreal.
Oh yeah.
And then often they'll stop working pretty quickly. At least that's been my experience with Lenovo laptops in the past. But anyway.
So what about the XPS then?
The XP,
13.
I really like that they fixed the camera issue.
Finally. Oh man,
I think that's awesome, and I like the white looks really great. I would have liked to test the keyboard a little more because like that was something that I was never super happy with on my XPS 15 I used to have. But I think a lot of people like the 13, and this one actually, if I remember correctly, has NVIDIA MX150 dedicated graphics, right?
Yeah, it's discrete graphics,
which is a big deal. Like that's not the strongest like GPU. I used it in my Surface Book 1, and it was okay. It could play like things like Overwatch at like low settings. But for a laptop that small and thin, I think it's a pretty big deal. It's going to be a lot more powerful than like, you know, the MacBook 13, which runs on a super low power Y processor and, you know, has no discrete graphics pretty much.
Yeah.
So I think for people that want something that portable, and then the MacBook 13, obviously, which also has the MX150, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I think the MacBook 13 though is cool. Like I think everyone's loved the MacBooks since they came out, especially when the Pro came out last year.
Yeah,
it was like
sure.
a huge deal. And I like that we're getting something a little smaller now, because like personally, I would like a smaller laptop. Because I have 3 laptops. I have the Razer Blade 15, the Surface Book 2, and then the bigger one, the 15-inch, and then I have a Chromebook, Pixelbook. But I have a tablet compartment in my backpack, and I think a 13-inch could fit in there if I had something that small. So,
well, there you go. Yeah, you definitely need yourself a slightly smaller device. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the Chromebook doesn't even fit in there. So,
yeah,
but, yeah.
I'm looking forward to getting. Apparently, I think I should be getting one at some point soon. The MacBook 13, so I'll keep everyone posted. I'm not sure about the XPS 13. I might request one. I'm not sure. They're just pumping them out so often. I don't have time to like spend time with them.
Yeah,
I still have an older one here. And then Lenovo, I mean, I currently have the Snapdragon one, the Snapdragon 850 Lenovo Yoga C630.
How do you feel about that?
Honestly, now that Firefox launched their optimized for ARM on Windows 10 version of their browser, I actually finally have a native, like other than Edge, I finally have a native browser that I can use.
Yeah.
And it's fast. It's
Really?
good. It doesn't feel any different than using a full-on Intel i5 anymore at that point. But emulated, you know, Firefox emulated, Chrome emulated, it was a pain. Chrome is supposedly coming out as a ARM64 for Windows 10 version soon as well. So I'll let you know when that happens. But right now, pretty solid. I mean, the battery life is what's amazing. And LTE built in. Anytime you want, you just connect. You don't have to even think of Wi-Fi anymore, you know?
Yeah, right. That's amazing. I wish that more laptops had that. I'd probably pay $10 a month for some data.
Yeah.
Or I could put a FiSim.
So that's been solid. So obviously, I don't know what that Lenovo Yoga S940 would be like, but here's what I want to put into perspective for folks. Like the ZenBook S, the new one that also has that reverse notched Audi thing.
I've always loved the ZenBooks, actually.
In fact, it was the first that was announced with that. Yeah. That laptop is also really sexy. And the only drawback with that laptop that I can see is that it's only a 1080p panel. It's the world's thinnest bezels of all laptops ever made. But it's only a 1080p panel and it's not a touch panel.
That is annoying. I love touch panels.
So that is going to be a problem. I mean, I wish I had gone to 1440. Look, I don't want 4K necessarily on my laptop.
Yeah.
It's nice to have, but 2K at least, you know?
You know what I like?
1440.
You know what I like about that laptop too is that it uses the design where it props the keyboard up.
Correct.
And it also, because that serves 2 functions, right? It makes it an angled keyboard,
Ergo
which
hinge.
And then also it gives it better airflow for the fans. It's awesome. And I've always liked the ZenBooks, actually. I think they've always been really good laptops. They're pretty cheap. And now that this has like
really hot.
The special camera too, and it's got the touchpad that you can put the numpad.
Yeah, you're right about the ZenBooks. I've always liked them too. My thing about them though, in general, ever since they did the Ergo hinge thing, is I feel that the keyboard deck's a little too flexible now because it doesn't rest on something, so it's a little bouncier than I like to be. But
I could see that. Yeah,
that's a minor thing, honestly. Like they're pretty hot laptops. But it's funny you brought up the numpad because the Studio Book is Studio Book S, and the Studio Book line is a new line that ASUS introduced at CES, and that 17-inch laptop is a powerhouse. It's got a Xeon.
Especially for how thin it is. Yeah, I remember seeing. Oh my gosh! And a Quadro, right?
Wow. I know, exactly.
Isn't it Xeon and a Quadro?
If you're a YouTube editor, I think this is if you have Premiere, this is the laptop for editing. Like, honestly, this thing's gonna slay.
I kind of want that now because like I don't really play games that much anymore, and you should
hit up Randall and get a review in it.
That's true. Not a bad idea.
Time. I mean, I don't think it's out yet. The ZenBook S is, I think, just about to come out, but the Studio Book S hasn't come out yet. And speaking of 17-inch, the other thing, I didn't see it in person, but actually I did see it. No, I did see it, but I didn't see it more than a few seconds, picked it up and that was it. Was the LG Gram 17. I don't know what the specs on that thing are. I'm sure it's not even remotely as high spec as that Studio Book, but I like the fact that thing was so light for a 17-inch.
Yeah, a crazy light 17-inch is pretty amazing. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Sure. Other laptops, let me think. I think we went through all of the ones that mattered. There was also some new gaming laptops from pretty much everyone. I didn't focus on those because they're not really my thing. I did like the Mothership because even though it's kind of like a gaming laptop, it's all such a weird form factor that's so different and so such a great idea to adapt the Surface form factor to a gaming laptop.
Oh yeah,
that you can lug around from LAN party to LAN party, as it were.
Right.
Do kids still do that? I don't know. I'm too old to know these things.
I did that in high school and stuff, but I
thought that was passé.
I used to lug around my desktop with a monitor and everything to my friends' houses every weekend. So
wow, did it survive?
Oh yeah, because I built it in the smallest chassis that possible. It's the N-Case M1, so very small chassis.
Oh, that's good. So I know you built it so you can maintain it. You can tighten all the screws every week just in case it starts falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's cool. Cool. Okay, so we talked about laptops. Let's actually jump into phones. There is a few phones that I felt were announced, and I want to talk about the CAT phones in a bit. But let's start with, I think to me, the phone of the show for CES 2019, which was the Honor View 20.
So yeah, the weird thing for me about the View 20 is that I went to China 3 weeks ago or a month ago.
Yeah, you saw it. So for you, it wasn't you.
That's the thing, is every other publication gave the View 20 best of CES. And if I hadn't seen it already, then it probably would have been, but I already did a full hands-on with it. So for me, it wasn't new. And so I didn't really consider it a CES product.
No, it's hard to consider CES product, but at the same time, it was a China-only phone until the global version was announced at CES. And so
yeah, but the launch isn't even until later this month and next week.
Yeah, it's in Paris on the 20th. But that's my point. We got basically a preview of it with global software at CES. And that sense is kind of a new phone.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that phone.
There wasn't really anything new other than maybe that CAT phone we're going to talk about. But there was, there's a lot of phones that had been announced before that we could have seen before if we were at the launch events like you were for the Honor 20. View 20, but I think a lot of us that didn't get invited to the Chinese launches got to see, like the Nubia X. I finally got to see the Nubia X, which is the dual screen phone, right?
Yeah.
Front screen is full screen, and then the back, and with no front facing camera, and then the back is basically a smaller OLED screen, 5.1 inches, and then it's got the rear cameras there. So that if you want to take a selfie, you just flip the phone over and there you go. And you can run 2 apps at the same time, front and back. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So again, that phone was launched October, November, sometime
Nubia
during
X, it was October, yeah.
Phone apocalypse, right? So the point is though that some of us, media went to China to see the launch. I don't know if you did, but I didn't. So
not the Nubia X. No, I didn't.
Seeing it in person at the booth was great.
Yeah.
What else? There was the Royole Flex Pi.
The Flex Pi, yeah. We did that.
Launched in October.
Right, we did that in October as well.
But I finally got to touch one.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, wow. It's actually a much more rugged feeling and much more sorted out than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And also a lot of that kind of weird unevenness of the plastic screen that we saw in the October photos and videos was kind of gone at CES. It was much more smooth.
Yeah.
The plastic top.
Yeah. I agree. It was definitely a little bit more refined here.
Yeah. So I feel like they are definitely working on it, and it's an interesting concept. I'm not sure it's my thing, but experimentation is really awesome no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And then I got to see my Moto 1 for the first time. Remember that phone?
Oh, yeah. I saw that you posted about that.
Announced in the summer for the Chinese market. Launched in the US in the fall with no review units in sight. Nobody's reviewed that phone. I don't think Moto is giving out review units. I don't know why. Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they don't want us to taste the lovely goodness that is Android One. But this is an Android One phone that costs $399. It's mid-range. It looks hot. And I don't know why we can't get a review unit. Moto, if you're listening, don't starve us. This is great.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else was there? Oh, Alcatel?
Yeah.
Did you play with the One X?
I did.
Because honestly, I was kind of blown away. I was like, $130 for this? That's really not bad at all.
This is actually the phone that we gave our best of CES to, specifically just because like of the value you're getting for the price, you know?
Yeah.
Like for $130,
it didn't feel like junk.
Good.
I mean, look, Alcatel phones have been a bit of a hit and miss for me, right? Like some of them have felt kind of meh. Some of them have felt okay, but they've never been really wowed me. I mean, of course, other than the BlackBerry phones that is also made by TCL. But like, I felt like this one, like I was like, oh, I mean, remember, so last year's Alcatel One X was an Android Go phone. And it kind of sucked. It had a really crappy screen. And as you know, TCL, the parent company, makes TVs. So you'd expect the screen to be half decent, but that wasn't the case at all. So my point is that this One X comes out this year, and honestly, 18:9 display, small bezels. It's plastic, okay, but
it's a nice plastic design. Yeah,
it's not. It doesn't feel like junk, and you know, I'm sure the camera is going to be meh, but $130, okay, $130 for a total like Android Pie, no Android Go phone. Not bad at all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it was good.
Anything else in the phone realm?
There was the Nubia Red Magic.
Oh yeah, the Red Magic Mars. That's what it's called.
Yeah, which has like triggers on the sides. $399. Yeah,
it's very much like the ROG phone with the ultrasonic triggers, right?
And for the price, holy crap!
$399
and it has an $845.
I know, $845. Single camera in the back. That's going to be a big question mark as to how good that camera is. But see, unlike the Razer that costs $750 or whatever, a Razer 2, I can live with a mediocre camera on a $399 Snapdragon 845 phone. In fact, I said that about the Pocophone F1, but then the Pocophone F1 camera actually surprised me at how decent it was. It with the built-in stock software. So then I put the Pixel camera on the Pocophone F1, and again, it became better. So here's what's good about this Mars phone is if the camera that's stock sucks in terms of software, I'm sure the hardware is okay. We can add the Pixel camera to it and call it a day.
Yep, pretty much. Just port it.
So what do you think of that phone?
The Red Magic?
Yeah, the design, the overall look and feel, like everything.
I didn't get to play with it, which is sad. Lon did the hands-on, but from what I saw on the internet, it looked pretty cool. And for the price point, I would love to try it out. I
mean, it's coming to the US like soon, like in a few days.
Yeah. Yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to see it at that point.
Also, when I talked to the folks at Nubia, they said that they're not going to launch the Nubia X in the US, at least this version of it, but they're looking at potentially launching one next year.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
Like a follow-up of this design.
Yeah.
I mean, again, take this for a grain of salt, right? Like this was not an off-the-record conversation. I don't think I'm breaking any secrets, but hey, I want to see more variety of Chinese phones in the US. And if Nubia wants to come play, I mean, aren't they related to ZTE in some way?
That's a good question.
I always thought ZTE and Nubia were like somehow friends. Kind of like a sub-brand of ZTE.
That is a good question. You know what's interesting? I really like the design though. I think that like Vivo did the dual display phone, and like one of the things that they said you could do with it was like tap on the back screen to use as a trigger. But that always felt kind of weird for me because like you have to tap with like your ring fingers. And I actually much prefer tapping with like my pointer fingers on like the top right and top left, you know?
Right.
So, personally, I think it's a better design as long as it works.
So I found an entry in Wikipedia. Subsidiaries. Nubia Technologies is fully owned subsidiary of ZTE Corporation. This is on Wikipedia. The company has subsequently disposed of the majority of equity in the company in 2017 and reduced its stake to 49.9. So it's spawned off of ZTE. There you go.
That makes sense. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. So this is cool. Again, it's interesting what you said about less of a Chinese presence this year. I think a lot of it has to do with our current regime and being so antagonistic towards China. I'm certainly seeing a reduction in interest as a consultant in Chinese companies coming to the US to launch products. Yeah. But at the same time, I linked to the story by Steven Sinofsky, who used to work at Microsoft and now is kind of an analyst guy. He does a very great summary on Medium every year of his CES experience, and looks at in a very kind of like trends, analyzes kind of like where the industry is going, and he felt like there were a lot more Chinese companies, at least on the smaller Chinese companies, exhibiting at CES than usual.
Really?
So at the same time, while the big players weren't there much, right? The smaller players are trying to come in, it looks like, which I thought was interesting. And I suppose it depends on your perspective, because everybody's got a different take on that.
I think the smaller players are what's kind of like shaking things up, though. Like that, they're really the ones that are making things interesting, because they're more willing to try and more willing to innovate. And like even like random small Chinese companies, we're seeing kind of scare bigger companies into doing more interesting things. Like I feel like the companies that are comfortable, like Samsung and like Motorola, or like any companies that are big, technically big companies, are not really doing anything that exciting. And I personally just like love seeing like other companies, like especially Chinese companies. Any Chinese company is going to do something more exciting than like a non-Chinese company, pretty much for sure. But it's cool seeing like Vivo and Oppo and stuff just trying this crazy interesting stuff, because I think people in China are more adept and like willing to try that out, right? Especially with Apple, like losing a lot of popularity in China now. I think people are looking for something new, looking for like the next interesting thing that is going to make them actually going to want to go buy it. So I wish that the people in the US would feel more comfortable trying new things. I think people here are just like too comfortable with what they know and don't really want to try interesting new tech.
Right. Right.
But it's cool as someone who does try all this Chinese stuff, being able to see like how quickly China is like innovating,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I see that. And we should probably talk about what else was there at CES. TVs. Of course, you talked about the
rollable
Signature R from LG, the rollable. That thing, wow, right? I mean, seriously, I wouldn't be surprised if 10 years from now, that's pretty much par for the course.
Oh, yeah.
In the high end, at least. Even not 10, maybe 5 years from now.
Right, yeah.
I feel like, we saw the prototype last year. It seemed a little clunky, but this year, I just love the idea that you can adjust the aspect ratio and never have any vertical or horizontal.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. It's so cool.
I mean, I kind of wish it went to 1-to-1 ratio, like Square, so that you could actually do 4:3 ratio for old content.
Yeah.
Because I think it tops out at 16:9 or 16:10.
Yeah.
But it does 21:9 perfectly if you want that, because it only raises part of the way. And it even has that mode where it just displays like the weather and what audio is
I really like
right
that
now,
too.
which
I
is
think that's
like
such
ambient.
a cool secondary use.
And did you see the audio specs on that thing? It's got Dolby Atmos, like it's a total full-on sound bar.
Well, the thing that it like sits in is like a giant
itself.
sound bar. Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's basically, it's your stereo in your living room. You can replace whatever you have with that little pedestal, put it anywhere. It looks like nice furniture.
I love that you can be having a party or something and not have your TV just,
I know.
There.
And there
it's
it is.
Crazy.
If you want it, just pulls right out. It's kind of amazing.
I love it. Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to be expensive. Nobody's talked about pricing, but I expect this thing to be like $10K or something when it comes out.
Definitely.
But other things that is really cool is a micro LED TV from Samsung, 75-inch micro LED. All the advantages of OLED with none of the drawbacks. Basically, incredible brightness, incredible contrast ratio, incredible color accuracy, and the super blackest of blacks and no wear. It just doesn't have the AMOLED wear.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, oh my God.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool display stuff that's like happening right now. I'm really excited about that industry moving forward.
Yeah, and Royole, that company we talked about with the folding phone, I mean, they're making this folding phone as to show off basically their display tech. And they have like at their booth, they had all kinds of cool stuff. They had like
like a purse,
a speaker like a Bluetooth speaker that the entire rim of it was a display, and you'd have visualizers on it and stuff. It's like circular display that went all the way around. It was really cool.
And like the purse that like shows stuff on the top too. Yeah, very cool.
I know. I mean, I just like that, this stuff is finally trickling down out of the labs into something that might become a real thing. And I think in automotive, it's going to make a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like curved surfaces in cars that display stuff.
Oh yeah.
I want that.
Oh yeah.
And I was watching an interview with one of the founders of Royole on Engadget's stage. They had like the videos from their stage.
Yeah.
I watched it obviously like after the fact, after like this week, not at CES. And he said that they actually have a contract with Airbus for in airplane displays. So this whole idea of like you've been in planes that have like the fiber optic stars in business class, like for example, Eva Air in business class on some 777s have the ceiling is all like stars and it glitters. And
right,
and
I love
they use
those.
LED mood lighting to give you like a sunset and it kind of creates the impression that you should go to sleep.
Yeah.
Well, imagine this whole part of the ceiling being a curved display from Royole.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can now have like actual a screen projection up there of like, the whatever it is, like the Aurora Borealis or whatever. Like, I mean, it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So considering how expensive planes are and how in these higher end, business class and first class cabins, they're going all out with expensive tech. I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing this rolling out on airplanes.
Yeah.
soon.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
And it's also weight savings because it's plastics, not glass. And it's not heavy.
Rolling
They have
out,
no
actually
inverters
rolling
'cause
out.
it's OLED.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Anything else that stood out? Oh yeah, I want to talk about a little bit about all the crazy speakers and assistant stuff. I mean, Google Assistant, Alexa, were in everything. AirPlay is in everything, and it's got me very excited, to be honest.
Well, there's Google Assistant Connect, right? That was the big announcement from Google this time.
Absolutely.
So it's making it really easy for non-assistant enabled stuff to get Assistant. Like Sonos made the announcement that their old speakers can now get Assistant because as long as you have a Google Home Mini or something, it'll basically just issue a software update to that speaker. You tell your Google Home Mini or your phone, like, play the Sonos speaker in the living room. And just because it's Wi-Fi connected, it works. And that makes sense, right? I think that's great. So it just makes it really easy for everyone to, like, really buy into the smart home ecosystem. And it's just super convenient that way. So...
yeah, no, I think I'm totally excited about the Assistant Connect stuff and that little clock from Lenovo, the smart clock for $79. I know it's still a lot of money for a lot of people because, like clock radio is like $10 at Walmart. But I mean, like, I feel like this is cool. This is really interesting when you consider how much bigger and more expensive a home hub is. This gives you like 90% of that functionality on your desk side. Or bedside, and it's really tiny. It's very aesthetically pleasing, and it's a full-on home speaker with a display for other things. I mean, it's very cool. Yeah,
I think it's great.
I think I'm really happy to see this proliferation of integration with assistants, and the fact that every device now has a radio of some kind, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, it doesn't matter, GSM, so that it can connect to the network and do something and take voice commands and can respond to them. And, it's just making kind of like the Star Trek universe come true. And I think it makes the entry, the level of entry, the access so much easier for everyone because you don't have a learning curve. You just talk to the computer, right?
Yep. We're definitely sliding into this like Trekian world type thing where everything is voice connected. And like we got voice connected stuff. We've got rollable, flexible displays and things. And like, we never really saw
holding tabs in our hands.
I know. Yeah. We never saw the transition happen, but it's kind of here, which is great. It's cool.
I'm stoked about it. And this is what I mean by like CES being very much an evolution this year, not an innovation. It's like all this stuff needed to iterate a few times, and it's iterating, and we're seeing it iterate in front of our very eyes with a show like CES. So I don't want the audience, the listeners here, to think for a second that I'm like bummed about CES. I think I'm a little bummed that I was wishing it was more exciting, there was more innovation, but at the same time, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing some really interesting and solid trends coming out of it that needed to happen. Sometimes you move too fast and you need to kind of take that step to improve what you have. And I think we're getting to a point now where, Google's clearly, leading the pack. And, we're seeing some like this no people are no longer taking camps like sides, right? It's like they offer a product and it works with everything right out of the box.
Yep. Yep.
And you see that with the new TVs that all have AirPlay. And the fact that Apple's cool with that, I think is really great because it's only going to help their ecosystem,
Yep. I agree. Definitely.
Especially in these hard times with their financials. I think it's just going to help them because services is really the future. No matter how you cut it, they make great hardware and they're going to continue. I have no doubts about that. But at the same time, you can't rest your laurels on just hardware. You really need to be able to innovate in services and software. And they've really been good at software, but services has been there. And, I think they're gonna find a way to make that work for them. At least I hope so.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So that's my kind of CS takeaway. And then there were robots and there were drones and things, but honestly, there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
I don't really know where to go. I'm just looking at my Instagram right now to see if there's anything we didn't cover. But no, I think we got almost everything on this list that mattered anyway. Aibo was fun. I got to play with Aibo, the robot dog at the Sony booth. Honestly, it was like, it's amazing. I know it's a robot. I know it's the newer version and it's much more lifelike than the previous version, but I was stunned. It was my first time interacting with version 2. And I was stunned at how I felt like I was petting a puppy. And that emotional effect of petting a puppy, stress going down, relaxing, smiling, being happy, all happened. So this thing was able to trigger emotional response to me in me that was similar to a real dog.
That's crazy.
And I thought that was really interesting. And I know I was stressed. It's CES, you're running around with your head cut off all day. You're trying to juggle a million things. So certainly felt like a nice little break to play with Aibo. But, and it's also interesting. Did you see Sony's approach to CES this year is so different, right? There was absolutely, even their press conference didn't mention any of their TVs.
Yeah, that is really interesting, actually.
Or cameras or phones or anything. Well, they talked about the cinema cameras, but basically they were like, Spider-Man, audio content, Pharrell, all that stuff. They basically, it was content, very little hardware at all. I was really surprised because I always miss the Sony press conferences because always awkwardly at their booth at LVCC, right when we're in the middle of doing all the stuff in Mandalay Bay. But this year I was like, I'm not going to miss. I'm going to go to the Sony press conference for once. I'm not going to disappoint. I'm going to go because, I always say, invite me and I never show up. It's kind of weird. So I went. I wish I hadn't gone. There was nothing there for me. I was expecting to see some stuff I could take photos of, but at least I got to play with Aibo, so it's not too bad.
Yep. And then they just announced the new A6400 camera yesterday. So
right after CES. And that looks interesting. Yeah, right after CES.
Yeah.
And then of course there was the Impossible Burger that kind of stole the show. I'm not a big fan of meat.
Yeah.
I will eat some meats, but I tend to much prefer fish and seafood. And so with hamburgers, I'm always very torn because I'm not a huge fan. I love burgers, but I don't necessarily like the meat in the burgers. So Impossible and the Beyond Burgers, which are the two kind of like super high-end vegetarian burgers that are existing.
The Impossible Burgers price have come down though recently.
Yeah,
they used to be like $17. Now they're only like $10.
I know. I like them and I try to have them as much as I can, but it was so unexpected for them to do a version 2 that by all accounts tastes even better and more real. And that it kind of got everybody excited enough that it got like awards and stuff.
Yeah. I doubt they were expecting that, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah, definitely. So, hey, I have a few news items I want to go over real quick. They're in our podcast topics. I'm going to bring that up. There's some news from Oppo, some news from Vivo. Let me bring that up real quick. So I felt like a lot of rumors right now because we're just pre-MWC, right?
Yeah, very close.
So before we start, the one that's not a rumor, and I haven't mentioned on the podcast at CES, but it happened while we were at CES. Samsung announced that they're launching the next phone. They're doing an Unpacked event in San Francisco on February 20th.
Terrible timing. Thank you, Samsung.
Oh my God, it missed everything. I can't go. I live in San Francisco and I cannot go because I will be in Spain already. And I looked at changing my flights and it's just cost prohibitive.
Isn't that horrible? It's like, obviously people are going to have booked their flights already. Like,
so many people are in the same boat. I am actually pinging them and ask them if they're doing briefings ahead of time or if they're doing, like hands-on one-on-one briefings at MWC, because I want to get my own video and photo content out of that. I don't really mind missing the event that much. I mean, it sucks because it's the first time it's in SF forever, and I'm going to be able to go. But
I know the funny thing is I'm in New York now. I just came for no reason, and then they announced this, and now it's like, well, now I have to go back to San Francisco. It's
right?
Yeah.
Stupid.
I kind of hope that they don't give us devices on the spot, though, because I don't want to deal with that at MWC.
Can you imagine the nightmare this would be? Like, seriously,
well, that's what happened with the Note 8. They announced it right before MWC. The review embargo was during MWC.
Jesus. You mean IFA?
Was it? I thought it was MWC 2 years ago.
Note. Are you talking about Galaxy S8 or Note 8?
Note 8 2 years ago.
That was not an MWC. The Note.
No, maybe IFA. Oh, IFA then. Yeah, IFA.
It's IFA. Absolutely.
Right. It was at IFA.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. It sucks when they do that. Anyway, let's. I just want to let you know that in case you haven't heard, there's going to be an announcement from Samsung, probably of the Galaxy S10, just before MWC. And I'm not going to be able to be there, but I will report on it on the podcast as soon as I can afterwards. Yeah. Let's talk about CAT phones, the rugged phones. I wanted to mention to the audience that I don't think they know this. I did an unboxing video of the S61 when it came out in the fall. And it was during Techtober phone apocalypse, so I didn't really have much time to spend with it. I have since then used the phone. And it's kind of their flagship rugged phone. And what makes it different, just like its predecessor, the S60, which I also reviewed, and I have a review video on my YouTube for that one. Yep. The 61 has the FLIR infrared thermal camera system built in. And it has cool features like a laser tape measure. So like it has a laser beam that you can shine at a surface and gives you the distance. And, it's a rugged phone that has all the trimmings, mid-range, really nice, definitely indestructible. So I just wanted to just mention it here because the folks at CAT were like, hey, we haven't seen your review. And I want to say, I enjoyed it. It's a good phone. If you want a rugged phone, it's pricey. It's about $1,000 because it's got all this FLIR and all these specs. But if you want like the ultimate toolbox phone in your pocket that's indestructible, CAT still is the rule of the roost. And so I'm bringing this up because they launched a new phone at CES called the S48C, which is the first CAT phone on Verizon. Yes. You got to do hands-on, so tell us about it.
So that was the big news, is that was on Verizon. The funny thing is there was no embargo for the device, but there was an embargo for the Verizon announcement. So I ended up just waiting and putting out the hands-on until the announcement. I was underwhelmed, and this is from someone who's used 2 CAT phones before. And the reason is because they played it very safe, and they didn't put anything special in this phone. So like, obviously it's got it's got the ruggedized everything. It's like military spec and whatever. Right. But
you expect that.
Yeah, you expect that. That's normal. But every other CAT phone has had something exciting, like a FLIR heat camera in it, or like a laser guided something. This has literally nothing. And the weird thing is...
it's a mid-range phone, and it's probably going to cost a little more because of the ruggedization, yeah?
Yes, it is. I think it's running a Snapdragon 660, and it is going to cost like $600, which is, and they're not showing it off at Verizon stores either, which is the other annoying thing. Sprint is going to have it in their store. But who uses Sprint? And then also, if you want it from Verizon, you have to go on catphones.com to get it. So the whole thing was just kind of like, it's expensive. It doesn't have any of the like, holy crap, this is an actual tool, right? Like when we had like the infrared cameras and like, laser guided stuff, it was like, this is actually a tool, and I could see contractors actually wanting to use this. But now it's like, my dad's a contractor, and he he uses a OnePlus 6. It's not a huge deal.
It's a hard sell because you can get a really rugged phone for a regular phone that costs less money and has better specs, right?
Yeah.
Now, the ruggedness is not just about putting a case on a phone. I realize that mil-spec is a whole different ballgame.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about driving over the thing with like a excavator, okay, and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It'll be dug into the mud. You'll have to like retrieve it from a deep hole. But the point is it'll probably survive, which is crazy. And I don't think your OnePlus 60, even the best case, will survive that.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's such a fringe case scenario that I think most contractors, unless you're working at a construction site outdoors in the worst weather and the most extreme temperatures, and drop your phone like high from really, really high up on a regular basis, I think most like contractors who like do home renovation or whatever will probably be fine with a ruggedized version through a third-party case of a OnePlus or something, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's also my gripe. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the phone is really cool. Like, I'm talking about the S61, you're talking about the S648C, but if you look spec-wise, the 61 has all the cool features like the FLIR camera, infrared camera, and the laser measure and whatever. But, it's got a Snapdragon 630, so it's a mid-range phone. In terms of all the CAT phones have been pretty mid to low range in terms of specs, right? Traditionally, like the 30 series is pretty low end, but the 60 series is always mid range. But the costs are insane, right? $600 for the 48C, $1,000 almost for the 61. It's tough sell. And the other thing that drives me nuts, I've given them that feedback, multiply them, they keep pushing back on it, is that I say, you have no fingerprint readers on your phones.
Yep.
And they're like, well, but because people are using them wearing gloves and stuff. And I'm like, I get it. But like some people will want to occasionally use the phone without their gloves on and will want a fingerprint reader to do like things like Android Pay in their break,
Yep.
And why don't you just put one on there? Even if it doesn't get used much, it's there. Like, It's like, doesn't preclude Face ID, which you could implement, which I'm sure they have on some of the models. But it's like, I just don't understand it. It's a little weird to me that I think they could do a better job in terms of specs for the prices they're charging. And, include things like a fingerprint reader. If that thing was $1,000, the 61, or $600 for the 48C, and had like a Snapdragon 700 series in it or 800 and had like, a better camera and, the displays have gotten better and the old CAT phones had crappy displays, but this is getting better now.
Yeah.
And had like, a fingerprint reader. I'd be kind of like, okay, like I can kind of see you're charging a premium
so
for this
AKA the Samsung Active line.
Yeah, and that's exactly when you get into Samsung Galaxy Active, right?
Yep.
Range of phones, S9, S8 Active. And that's tough to compete with those because they're pretty rugged too, right?
Did they make an S9 Active? Did they?
Did they? I thought
they stopped after the S8, but I might be wrong.
Maybe the S8 Active is the last one. You're right. You can tell us in the show in the comments, folks. Yeah. I don't want to Google it right now. But look, I just want to say, like, there is a market for rugged phones that are mil-spec that are like designed from scratch to be rugged. And I appreciate that and I applaud CAT for taking that on. I just wish we'd get a little more for the money.
Yeah, same.
And it feels like they're not trying hard enough, as you said. Like, it just kind of very meh. And I know we come from reviewing flagships and stuff all the time, but
I have a feeling that Verizon pressured them to make it more of a, nothing too out of the box. Because they went from, having like laser guided stuff and like, infrared camera stuff to offering nothing special. And I have a feeling that Verizon was like, we need to make this appeal to a wider market. And so we're just going to have it be ultra rugged and that's kind of it.
But I reviewed the CAT S41 last year, which is its predecessor.
I also reviewed that phone.
48.
Yeah. And
honestly, it's the same thing. The same thing applies. It's just meh all across the board.
Yep.
Right? There's nothing that stands out. In fact, it has a MediaTek chip, a Helio P20, nothing to write home about at all.
Yeah.
And it's still a like €450 phone.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, true.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, that came out in September 2017. So you got to put it in perspective, right? It's kind of like, it's got its...
Like what was pricing like back there or whatever.
It's a year and a half old, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, battery life was the big deal with the S41. It had,
it had a 5,000. Oh, here's the other thing. It had a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. This one has a 3,000 or 4,000. Like, why'd you go down? Like, why?
So the S61 has, let's see, it's a smaller cap. It's 4,500. It's not bad, right? So 4,500 is still pretty acceptable. But anyway, look, let's move on. The reason I brought that up is because I wanted to, let the folks know at CAT that yes, I've played with the phone and here's some of my feedback. But secondly, that strangely enough, there's an S90 phone, unrelated, not CAT, but Doogee. Is that how you say it? Doogee,
I think.
Chinese company. Doogee. Yeah. Doogie Howser. I'm dating myself, I know. Has a rugged modular phone, and I will put a link in the show notes. TechCrunch reported on that. Looks interesting. Has a night vision camera, like not infrared, but like the green monocle thing that military use. It has one of those as a module. It's modular and it's rugged. It's really interesting. It's cool actually. It looks spec-wise more interesting than the CAT phones. It looks as rugged. It has the mil-spec stuff, but it has like a notch screen on it. So obviously they're trying to maximize screen real estate, even though it still has a lot of bezel to protect the phone from shock. It looks cool. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and it's got the attachments, kind of like the Motorola attachments that you get, the mods.
The mods, yeah.
It's similar to that.
Interestingly enough, it has that weird little contact array at the bottom of the phone.
Yeah.
Which is interesting for a rugged phone because that's going to corrode, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But related to that, there's a bunch of not related, but kind of, speaking of Chinese phone makers, there's a bunch of rumors. There's rumors well, not rumors. We know that Vivo is launching a phone on January 24th. And it's supposed to be called the water drop phone. Basically, it's supposed to have no seams that are visible. Interesting.
Yeah, I saw, I looked at that and it looked very interesting. I actually contacted Vivo this morning, see if they would comment on it. Haven't gotten a response back because it's China time right now, but or it's late in China. We'll
find out.
But yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
Some people I'm sure are going to get invited, and I'm looking forward to see what they come up with. I mean, this is the thing that I'm finding exciting right now. We're seeing some interesting form factors and variations on things. Things are less boring in many ways. A lot of people are saying, phones have kind of reached the peak, right? We're at peak phone. Apple's not making any more money making phones. This must be the end, right? And I'm like, no, not at all. Like, look at the form factors. Look at, the Honor View 20.
Yeah.
That's a great looking phone for the money. And I think this Vivo, I'm looking forward to this Vivo water drop phone, whatever it brings to the table. And, relate to that, Oppo has rumors of a 10 times zoom phone coming out. So a phone with a 10 times optical zoom lens, probably in addition to a bunch of other lenses, which is a pretty fashionable thing to do these days. But we've seen 2 times optical telephoto, 3 times optical telephoto, like on the Mate 20 Pro, P20 Pro, and then we've even some 5 times zooms. I think there's a couple of phones out there with that as a second lens.
Yep.
And now they're going 10 times. I hope they have something between the 10 times and the wide angle, right? Because that's quite a jump.
I have a feeling that it's not going to be true 10 times, and it's probably going to be like either 5 or 8, hybrid. And then it'll be like AI, because that's what most people do to get that extra.
That honestly works out okay, Yeah, absolutely. And let's see what else we've got. Oh, and then there's this morning I just opened my feeds and found that for the nth time, I want to say this is not a new rumor. We've heard this rumor for a while, but this seems to be a little more substantiated now because The Verge is reporting on it. There's rumors of Lenovo making a Moto Razer.
Oh yeah, I saw that this morning. Yeah, and it's supposed to be $1,500.
Yeah, it's going to be a luxury item to compete with the Samsung W series, which, as you know, is a dual screen clamshell like flip phone that's Android based. It's high end.
When I was in Japan, those are everywhere.
They're everywhere, and in China they love them too. Like that W series is like a $2,000 phone. It's super blingy. But it's Android, which is cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think that if they do this, they should do it instead of a numpad on the bottom half, unless they're making this phone for the Chinese market. But this is the rumor here is that Verizon is on board with this. So that to me means it's a US launch, and nobody wants a numpad on the second half of their phone in 2019, right?
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but if that other half is also a touchscreen,
yeah.
So basically, a portrait clamshell flip phone with 2 touchscreens on the inside. That would be Android, of course. That would be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
And of course, it'd be expensive because they're trying to position it as such. But whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll keep you posted.
Yeah, excited about that one.
Samsung Galaxy S10 launch on February 20th in San Francisco. I'm so bummed I can't go, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are in the same boat. I'm really hoping they come back to us and say, hey, we're going to do some briefings or something. I'm going to have to leave for Barcelona
like the next morning. So,
wow.
or like later that night. I don't know. I haven't booked my Barcelona ticket yet, which is convenient.
Yeah, I did a while ago. And that's the problem. I picked the cheapest flight I could, and you know how it goes. Then it's the refundable stuff is not really refundable or changeable, at least unless you want to really screw yourself over. So we'll see how it goes. But hey, that's life. Listen, we should wrap it up. I think we've covered most of the corners.
Yep.
Wouldn't you say? Do you want to spend a few seconds telling the audience where they can find you and where you write and all your handles and stuff?
Sure. I write currently for a website called Android Authority. I do a lot of our YouTube stuff on there, and then I also do all of our hands-ons and most of the reviews. So yeah, you can find me there. My handle for Twitter is Durvid Imel, DURVIDIMEL, and I'm very active on Twitter. That's like probably my most used social media platform. I've also been leaning into a lot of photography, and I'm trying to do more on Instagram. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's just my name, David Imel, DAVIDIMEL. And those are pretty much the only social platforms that I use, unless you want to find me on Slack or something. But
No, that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yep, there you go.
Cool. And you know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgirl on Twitter and Instagram. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character Tankgirl, without the vowels. And of course, I have a YouTube channel that matches this podcast. It's called the Mobile Tech Podcast channel, and it's at youtube.com/Miriam Jouar. My full name spelled out. I didn't want to change the URL, so because I kind of rebranded the channel at the end of last year. But go find some videos that match the news we talked about here. I'm going to have an unboxing video of the Honor the View 20 very shortly, so that'll be something to look forward to. Subscribe to the channel and like the videos if you do. And then more importantly, subscribe to this podcast. If you stumbled upon this podcast by accident because you follow Dave or something, please subscribe, mobiletechpodcast.com. There's an RSS feed there, but you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, and TuneIn Radio even. So check it out. And also, I want to say thanks to our sponsor, Audible. Audible.com is where it's at for audiobooks. If you like to listen to your books instead of read them, as it were, that's the place to go. Audible.com has a lot of selection. And if you want to support the podcast, you can get a free month of Audible.com by clicking in the link in the show notes below. And of course, I will give you that as well. It's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. So yeah, support us by supporting Audible if you're not already a customer. And especially if you have a job or something that prevents you from reading books, but you can listen to them while you're commuting or something, that's the place to go. So thanks again for being on the show, David. Pleasure as always.
Yep. Thank you for having me on. I always enjoy it. I think this is like my third or fourth time doing this with you.
Exactly.
So, yep.
So let's have you on again soon. And in the meantime, stay tuned for another show next week, everybody. Cheers.
See you later.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.